Next, we have an amazing group of individuals, a panel that will be speaking about NFT brand partnerships in 2022 and beyond. So without further ado, please give a warm welcoming to Joe, Jeff, Matthew, and Kelly.
GM.
GM.
Before we get started, I saw a tweet this morning that showed a picture of one of the stages and all of the seats were empty. I guess that was FUD. I'm pretty sure that was like 7:45 a.m. before the doors even opened, right? So it's been an awesome conference so far. So we're here to talk about brand partnerships with NFTs in 2022 and beyond. My name is Jeff Krantz. I am a dev and collector. And I'm here to talk about my CryptoPunks sponsorship by men's hair loss company Keeps.
My name is Kelly Digregorio. I am VP and Global Head of Entertainment Business Development at Polygon Studios.
I'm Matthew Iles, co-founder and COO of Mojito, which is a Web3 commerce platform for brands, and also the managing director of the Sotheby's Metaverse experience.
I'm Joey Jeter. I'm a creative director at a production company called Buoy. We focus on a lot of metaverse experiences, NFT drops, and also a founder of a advisory company called Moonsuit.
Awesome. So the first question I've got for us is, why are brands reaching out and asking about NFTs today, and what are they expecting? Maybe Joey, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, most of the time, a brand will come around and they'll say like, so how do we NFT? And I feel like that's the best, just like lay it all out. Let's talk about, how a brand can build an NFT campaign. I usually, I remind people what it was like for advertising and social media when they were like, so Twitter and Instagram stories, right? Like, what do we do here? So it's a lot of an education play. Which then I think really builds deep relationships and partnerships too, just to really think and understand what a brand's goals are and how they can really work with this new technology. And I think that's the best way to look at it is just really a new way to use technology that can do a lot more exciting things for brands to get closer to fans and buyers.
Totally agree with all of that. I think one way I've been thinking about this is what isn't changing for brands. What are the first principles that brands care about? And the three key metrics that every brand is looking to drive is acquire new customers, increase lifetime value, and reduce churn. And they already today incentivize consumer behavior to try to improve these things. There's referral programs. If you refer a friend that's helping them acquire new customers, they'll give you maybe a discount or a gift card. There's content creation and sharing, which is another form of word of mouth and brand awareness. They'll incentivize those behaviors. And then, of course, there's loyalty points and trying to reward repeat purchase and kind of stickiness. And that's about increasing lifetime value and reducing churn. And so I think in looking at what can Web3 do to incentivize these consumer behaviors that drive their key metrics that Web 2 can't do? I think starting from that and trying to understand what the brands are already doing and ways to show them that Web 3 has new incentive designs that may improve on what they're already doing, I think kind of grounds them, to your point, when they come like, what is NFT? It grounds them in something that they already fundamentally understand, which is those three key metrics.
Yeah, and I would say if you look back at the last 2 decades, just these technology movements that have kind of swept through music catalogs moving online, the digital video revolution, OTT, SVOD, I feel like a lot of brands realize that they may not necessarily know what they want to do in the space, but it's a new technology that they want to be a part of, even if it's at least just experimental now. They don't want to be left out. History has shown, you talked about instead of looking at what they want to do, it's what they're not doing. I'm thinking, historical context, and, brands want to be part of the next technology movement in some way, shape, or form. Then in addition to that, I think the brands that have really thought about it and at least the most basic level know that they want to do something specific. They're thinking about either one, fandom and collecting. They want to encourage something for the fans of their brands, or they're thinking about account ownership. So how a consumer is becoming more interested in owning their digital assets and owning their digital identity and being a part of that. And so at the most simplistic level, I think brands understand that when they've made the decision that they want to be a part of it, it's one or both, either one or both of those reasons.
Yeah, I think that's great to hear because I feel like even 3 months ago, we were seeing big brands trying to do like a 10,000 NFT collectible drop and like sell out in an hour and generate a bunch of buzz or make a bunch of money. And I think it sounds like we're starting to see brands realize this is more about customer acquisition and activation and driving behavior. And we really need to flip that kind of hot drop method on its head and use it to our benefit for long-term strategy versus short-term strategy. So that's great to hear. Awesome. So along those lines, what are the goals that we're hearing from these brands in Web3 and in NFTs?
Yeah, I do think there's more of an embrasure of long-term strategy. There's still a lot of interest in dropping collectibles, kind of individual NFT drops for fans to collect, but I'm hearing more about wanting to move entire loyalty programs into Web3 or move, for example, content rights management or ticketing and being able to do ticketing on Web3 and have users have that experience of knowing that their ticket itself is authenticated even if they, for example, bought it secondhand, and also have that kind of iconic ability to socialize around the events that they've attended by having collectibles. I mean, I don't know how many people have tried to, we were talking about this before in the back room, but save your tickets from all theater performances you've attended or concert performances you've attended, and then I end up, I move and I lose a big batch of them, and just being able to have this digital kind of social footprint of the events that you've attended and connect with other people in that way, I think is also a fascinating use case.
Yeah, I think you're right. The drops has kind of been questioned. I think in an area that big brands are looking at is how can we maybe start with like a claimable, how can we bring the existing community who's already engaged with us, who already buys from us, we shouldn't maybe necessarily sell them something right off the bat again,
Exactly.
but instead provide them with a reward that then has utility and starts to demonstrate the value of these assets in the first place. And I think that goes back to what I was saying, like digital assets and owning a part of the brand platform is in and of itself a new incentive that can be leveraged to help drive those behaviors of word of mouth, because if my friend joins, that's going to lead to asset appreciation for me. So I think that's a little bit of how brands are trying to figure out drawing across their strongest fans already and providing them with these new incentive mechanisms.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it too is like the biggest goal is how do we get people to care about our brand more in a different way, which, I talk about social media a lot. Is the same thing. We're targeting people. We're finding we're going to where they are to, tell them more about us. So like we all know that NFTs are a great way to target people. I hate to say that like NFTs can be a new CRM tool, but like ultimately it can be, and I think it's super powerful. But I think brands need to do it in an earnest way that's actually building experiences for people, so that you actually have something for people to experience the brand in a new way. And I think we see a lot of that here, just with a lot of NFT projects doing great events. We've been partying all night, and thanks to NFTs, thanks to the money we've all put into these projects that we really love and care about. So for brands to take kind of that same, kind of take that same approach to how do we get people, how do we provide something it's like a really positive experience so that they have a deeper, kind of engagement with our brand.
Yeah, I think that's all great. And I mean, when a brand thinks about onboarding into Web3, I think they're kind of thinking inside out. But I think step one to onboarding into Web3 is getting your customers and your fans onto Web3. And how do you do that? It's by getting them wallets and getting their address. If you don't have their wallet address, there's not much you can do in terms of engagement. And I really think, pushing out an NFT, kind of this long-term strategy we're talking about, doing a free drop, something like that, just to get that list of addresses of all of your customers is an awesome first place to start. Then you can drive a long-term strategy, maybe something a la Bored Apes and Yuga Labs, where you just keep using drops to drive behavior that you're looking for from your customers and from your fans. That's great. So how can Web2 brands or traditional brands start thinking about onboarding into Web3 in addition to what we've already said?
Yeah, I think we're just kind of going back and forth. It's great. No, I think it's a really interesting conversation that, the space, there are so many opportunities, so many builders, so many different ways to get people into digital collectibles, but also get people into NFTs. So I feel like the biggest conversation is always like, where are we minting it? How do we get people who aren't going to set up their wallet, aren't going to use something as simple or easy as maybe Rainbow, much less something as complicated as MetaMask. I say complicated, but that's a big part of the conversation. And I feel like talking about long-term goals, we really have to steer brands into thinking about the right chains, something that's going to be interoperable in the future. But a big part of the conversation is also like our energy consumption. So I think that's a big part of conversations I have with brands is looking at a chain like Polygon or even Flow, and thinking about something that we plan to see in a decade that we can still build experiences on in the future. And I think that's being able to get that conversation set up early, I think helps brands also understand some of the ways that they should treat the space, almost like a traditional ad placement. Where you're putting your media is as important as where you're putting your NFTs, which chain you're putting it on.
Yeah, I think building on that, your comment about wallets, every user who onboards into this is going to have to get a wallet, and there's been different approaches to how to support that. So maybe we actually provide them with a custodial wallet. We kind of abstract that. We'll pay for the gas, et cetera. But increasingly, as these projects rely on utility and the ability to prove ownership, or now I want to go to the secondary marketplace on OpenSea, or now I want to go into a token-gated Discord. You have to have the wallet to actually start to experience those things in a self-hosted way. And so then you have to start educating them around security, maybe. You have to start educating them around gas and why this stuff is even needed and important. And so it is an educational hurdle. But I think over the last several years, and Mojito and our team has kind of been a part of these experiments of maybe we should just make this as simple as possible, hide Web3 from consumers, because then they don't have to think about it, they don't have to worry about it, and it's initially an easier onboarding experience. But then you got to run into it at some point. And there's becomes a frustration actually after that point. Oh, I've spent the money, and now I'm supposed to try to access the utility, and now I've got to go download this thing, and now I've got to figure out what gas is. So I do think that we just need to embrace Web3 and help the brands communicate the why, and a lot more education to help.
Yeah, I do think it comes down to having, the conversation with the brands about their comfort level, because it really comes down, do you want to do collectibles? Do you want, do you want tokens to be connected to physical merchandise? Do you want them to be connected to access to events? Do you want them to be connected to voting rights? Make actual decisions around things that you do in the future related to your product, which is, of course, much more farther down the kind of the commitment spectrum. And so really having that conversation around, okay, we understand you want to maybe just experiment, maybe do something really impactful in the space, but what is your comfort level? Because there's so many different things that you can do.
Yeah, I imagine we have some Web 2 or traditional brands in the crowd today. So maybe more specifically, what are the hows and the best practices today for onboarding people into Web 2, maybe specifically if someone's taking notes out there? Do we have any examples?
I mean, yeah, I think to what we're speaking about is it's the future. We want to make sure that people understand that if you're sending someone to a centralized platform for a digital collectible, the pain points will be coming in the future. And I think that if you're setting up people to have an experience in the future that's negative, or that requires a lot of friction, then looking back on what that brand set you up to do, you kind of have a negative sentiment. So I think really just kind of hitting on that, but also it's becoming easier and easier all the time to set up a wallet. I think Rainbow as a mobile option is great. There was a lot of blockchain creative labs used it quite a bit at South by Southwest last year. And obviously just having an opportunity to give them a step-by-step with a MetaMask. And I think, having an early conversation of here's the simple steps that you have to expect for people to do, and here's an FAQ, and that feels like it can be a little passive, but I think if there are there are areas for like customer support. That's a place that they can just also open up those traditional avenues of customer support to kind of help them.
Yeah, I think two of the newest things maybe that brands are experiencing and kind of think they get, but then once they launch, they really kind of their eyes open, is the community management aspect of this is much more than what they're used to from social media. And I've seen brands kind of launch and then say, we'll figure out the community management later. And then they're playing, they're on their heels, obviously. So I think really having a thoughtful, dare I say roadmap, but a thoughtful sort of approach to how you're going to manage the community is critical. And then I think the other thing, to this point around kind of incentives, the experimentation around Punks and Yuga Labs with CC0 and enabling the consumer that owns the asset to actually go as far as monetize it themselves without any permission or payback to the original brand feels so Web3 pure, and yet I think is completely anathema to most brands. We've been approached by brands that want to know if they can effectively pull back the NFT if it's been misused by the owner for any reason. Like if they post something not great on social media, they want to be able to take the NFT away from the user. And it's that's not how this actually works. So the idea of going so far as allowing a consumer to actually monetize with their IP is just a head explode moment. But I think those things is this is all about ownership and becoming an owner in the brand. And I think brands need to understand what that really actually means is you're going to have shareholders in your community, not just fans on social, and they're going to demand more. And so you better, manage your board almost. And then going so far as actually enabling monetization opportunities for those consumers, I think is something that more brands should be exploring.
I definitely want to second the comment on community management. I think that's a really big one. And I feel like all brands have gone through iterations of this and in terms of different technology mediums they've joined in the past. I mean, I was at YouTube in 2007 to 2013, and I remember working with companies, and they're like, "Wait, I have a channel to manage. Do I want my comments on? Do I want them off? If they're on, I have to moderate them, and need to do call to actions, and I have to encourage people to subscribe, and you really have to engage to have true success." And we've seen it, in Twitter. We've seen it in all of these kind of different Web 2 movements, and in Web 3, it stands true as well. Community engagement and operations are important. If you're, planning on working with a for hire developer, it's great if they build the thing, but what's your plan on an ongoing basis to engage with that community? Or does it make sense for you, to have a partner working with you in that? They're really going to help you make sure that your application is successful. Another thing I think in terms of best practices, sometimes I think brands spend too much time kind of beating users over the head with the whole we're in Web3, we're in NFTs. Someone, I forget who it was, but someone was telling me about look, we don't use these terms anymore, information superhighway or World Wide Web.
Right.
It's just, it's a tool, it's accessibility. And I think that what all this comes down to is an experience for your existing customers and also for converting customers, right? And so it's all about having a great experience, a nice front end, good UX. And it's, if what's happening is their SDK is plugging this front end into the blockchain and things are being documented and, you can maintain, you can uphold secondary sale royalties and all these great things that come with the blockchain. But it's really just about the experience. So have a great experience and sell that, and don't necessarily obsess over conveying, I'm in Web3, I'm in NFTs. Those terms are probably not going to be, used as much down the road. It's just going to be part of, this wonderful technology and just the way that people interact and consume.
Well, it's be cool about it.
Be cool.
Right?
Be cool.
Yeah, come on, be cool. Yeah. Because I think if, and that's an interesting point too of thinking about in the future, we're not going to be using these terms in the same way. So a part of that also, and not to push FOMO, but getting in early is pretty important for brands to, not only set a foundation, but also kind of be a leader in the space for a while. So if you're getting into, into the space earlier than other competitor brands that might be in your space, you know, you do have a little bit of a leg up and have another, you know, another kind of feather in your cap. But I think also just to kind of build on, you know, community management and everything, I think it is like when social teams started growing in-house and at agencies, we're going to need the same thing when it comes to anything Web3. We're going to need to have in-house dev teams for agencies and brands, in-house community managers, in-house, you know, people who are just playing around in the space too. And I think that's a big part of what's important for, you know, agencies like Vayner, having Vayner NFT, having a lot of degens on your team is pretty important. And, you know, that was kind of like when companies were hiring 19-year-olds to do their social media, and they were doing great, right? And they were getting all the buzz. So I think it's really important to have, you know, a finger on the pulse in a space like this, so that your brand is doing something that's informed and something that people actually care about.
Yeah, I like the saying that Web3 will go mainstream when the user doesn't know that they're using Web3, right? You see a lot of people out there, I mean, I think literally in the streets and on Twitter, like protesting NFTs. And I understand why $100,000 cartoon monkeys elicits like a certain response like that. But I think it's important to remember that NFT is just a technology, and it's up to us to build the kind of application layer on top. It doesn't, no one says that they hate SMTP, right, or HTTP. I think that's important to keep in mind. So I'm going to optimistically say that we're in a mini bear market right now, and that maybe it's time to think about expectation setting for brands when they do an NFT launch or a Web3 strategy. I think the days of the 30-second 10,000 NFT drop are at least on pause. So what can we do to set expectations for brands in the short term here?
I think that it starts with strategy, right? So like, why are you doing this? And I think a lot of the brands that maybe were like, oh, look, we built something in Decentraland, like we're cool, we're hip, but it was really just like a stunt. They're not going to see any value in doing stunts right now because we're in a mini bear market, and you don't get quite as much credit for doing that today. But it's also not lasting value anyway in the first place, right? So I think that there's a at least at the right now, there's probably a demographic and psychographic exploration of your customer base that should take place. Like, is my customer actually interested in this? You know, maybe Geico and Wendy's, like, it doesn't make sense for them to enter the space right now. But if you are a consumer brand that values innovation, that values a visual aesthetic, and that the principles of ownership, the creator economy, if that resonates, and if you're particularly a very social media driven brand, it makes sense for you to be exploring this space. And thinking about the utility and the community management strategy that you're going to place on the other side of these NFTs that you either give away initially or sell, it has to be part of a broader roadmap. So, and I don't mean that in the crypto sense. I mean that like every major brand has a plan for the whole year, for all their product lines, for all their consumers, that's just running today. And it shouldn't have like this siloed off Web3 experiment thing that's not related to their core strategy. They should reflect on whether their core strategy and their core customer base would benefit from using the incentive capabilities and the kind of value overlaps that Web3 brings to augment what they're already planning to do, and do it thoughtfully.
Yeah, I long-term mindset, I agree. I mean, Decentraland is fantastic. I also hear a lot of brands that I talk to thinking about how they're going to make it a consistently engaging experience, introducing mini games or puzzles, and including new artists or new product drops, or just having a roadmap, thinking of your roadmap the same way that you would for other aspects of your business is really helpful.
Yeah, and I think there are some good brands to look at, not to like pump my own work, but Samsung's work in Decentraland with 837X. If you haven't had a chance to go look at it, it's great. But they are really looking at this place that's basically a flagship store for them in DCL as being a place to go experience the brand. And there's quests and education involved with like what Samsung is doing. Some of it's a little chest beaty, but it's necessary. But there's something going on right now that we were able to bring in Nouns, talking about CC0, which was really exciting to put Nouns and Samsung together in a way that didn't really create a lot of, actual, from what we understand, of partnerships and legalities, and even the brand and the agency asking, do we need permission for this? And being able to say no, but still do something that's honoring Nouns because we, adore it so much. It's a really exciting, kind of future play.
I think also to your point about NFTs, it's just the tech. I think the marketing tool set is becoming more communicable to brands. So Mojito, we're able to enable brands to do drops, which is a sale, claimables, which can be a free one, gates of whether that's a ticket, so gated event or a gated online experience. And so that's a new tool set that they can add to these tokens. Hosted marketplaces, I think we'll start to see Sotheby's, more brands actually try to have the entire marketplace experience take place on their own site. Of course, it's still open and you can go to OpenSea and other places, but I think there is something that's off-brand of, you make this beautiful website, so people can get their NFTs and suddenly they go to a completely different brand experience where they're mixed together with everything else. And same, I think to an extent, same with Discord. Is an off-brand experience for many brands. So I think there will be more of a push, since it's obviously possible to design your own front end and access the NFT tech in the back end however you want, that we'll have more of these completely holistic kind of brand experiences that tie together the whole NFT journey for consumers, which just goes further to the point of these long-term strategy, though.
Awesome. So we're almost at time, so I think maybe we should end with how if there's someone that wants to touch base with us, how can they reach us?
I'm my first initial last name at polygon.technology. If you have questions, let me know, and we'll make sure someone on the team gets back to you. I think part of brand success really is having the right conversations around what wallet's right for me, what chain is right for me, what marketplaces do I want to try and join in partnership with. Maybe I want to do multiple brand drops, which some of the people on the panel here have worked on, a couple brands coming together and doing something really new and exciting. So just explore your options and get an education.
And I'm Matthew at mojito.xyz if you want to email me, or at Matthew Iles on Twitter. And if you're a brand that's looking to get into the space and you need not only software support, the technology to do all this, but also consulting, we do it all. So it would be great to hear from you, and we'd love to help you enter Web3 successfully.
And I'm ETH Potato on Twitter. That's all.
And I'm at Krantz. Thanks, everyone, so much for the time.
Thank you.